this just, it went right over your head. By all means, stop me. If it didn't, you know, and you're like, yeah, of course I know all this. That's how I do every one of my VLOOKUPs. That's great. All right. VLOOKUP example number 3. So you can do a couple different things with VLOOKUPs, right? You can use them for an exact match, a near match, and then this is one you won't see a whole lot of, but it is useful to know about. This essentially is your nearest. So for those of you that are familiar with the VLOOKUPs, right, you've got your value you're looking up, you've got the array that you're looking out of, and you've got the column to return, right? So that's easy enough. If you notice, the range lookup is blank in this formula, right? What that does is it will pull the nearest one. So this is just a quick sample rate, you know, for those of you that are health, this is a grossly oversimplified per pay period cost, right? What this is doing is coming down and saying, give me the rate ID, go look it up in this table over here, all right? So rate ID 1 will give you $100. Too easy, right? You notice if you give a rate ID of 0, which 0 doesn't exist on this table, it won't pull anything. It'll give you a pound NA. But if you come down and have 4, rate ID 4, right? 4 doesn't exist on this table either. However, because we left this last value off, it's going to pull the nearest, which is 150, right? Same with 5, 6, 7, all the way down. If we go back in and we say false across the end of it, oops, sorry, then you're going to go back to your pound NAs, right? It's not something you will use every day, perhaps, but it is one of those things that when a consultant, let's say you have a third-party consultant, gives you a rate sheet, and you're looking at it, and you're like, you know, I got a bunch of pound NAs. It looks like you're missing some rates, and they're going to say, oh, yeah, it is. Just use the nearest one, or use a dummy one, and we'll get you a new rate supplement next week, right? Well, you don't want to hold up your testing, right? Because if it's Thursday and you're trying to get this stuff tested by Friday, you don't want to shut everything down just because a consultant gave you a bad rate sheet. You can put some false numbers in there, such as last year's rates, or maybe you use $1, those sort of things. You could also use this function here just to kind of auto-fill in some of those rates. In pension land, every now and then you will be projecting benefits in the future. And let's say someone wants to run a benefit through 12/31/2014. If you only have pay up through July, you could also use this function to push pay through the end of the year. It's just got a couple different uses of the VLOOKUP that people don't use every single day, but it's something worth knowing. All right, moving on, we talked a little bit about filtering and those sort of things. For those of you from Excel 1, hopefully you've got a chance to play with this. For those of you that took Excel 2, if for some reason you are this person that uses this feature right here, sorry. If you use these here, right, my only caution to you is use them at your own risk. It's not that they don't work. They work 95 to 98% of the time, which the other 2% when they don't work, it typically is the CEO's daughter, niece, wife, etc. That has problems, and then we all get to explain to Carrie and or Ken how we manage to screw up the CEO's daughter's, you know, prescription coverage. So with that, feel free to use them. Just appreciate that they're not 100% in all things. Any questions about copying, filtering, or using factors through Pay Special? I won't go back through everything on this tab here, but since I mentioned it doesn't always work, would anyone like to hear more or wonder why? That's my opinion.
I would actually like to wonder why it doesn't.
Okay. Okay, fair enough. All right, so here's the issue. On this data set, see Grover Cleveland down here, right? See how he's in there twice? You can do a couple things. You can copy this stuff here, and you can go to, it's under, oh, there, bear with me. The person that created this is called ribbons now. There we go, advanced. Ribbons over toolbars, and they're special. I appreciate them doing that. So this is the advanced filtering. Advanced filtering is sort of a crutch that Microsoft built in here. So we can see we've got our data set. We see we have the criteria of B, right? Column B here. B is assuming that everyone has the same SSN only one time. You know, example that it's a unique value. Once you copy that, it's going to move it down here to this range, okay? that criteria of B, when you click on unique records only, right, it's going to get rid of Grover Cleveland. I agree, because SSNs are unique in this data set. Okay, so that sort of works. Well, let's say instead you go in here and we use this function, which again, I'm not calling it wrong. Please don't take it that way. A lot of people use it. What will happen is it's 8:58 my time on a Thursday morning, right? Last night I had a good night's sleep. This morning I got up, had coffee, no problem, right? Fast forward to September, right? I've been working, 10 to 12-hour days for 3 or 4 weeks. Last night the kids were screaming or whatever. I came in, I'm kind of tired. I don't want this. Yeah, I'm just going to scroll down to that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. Click all through it. Boom. My lazy human eyes picked up Grover Cleveland twice, right? It's not that it won't work. It technically, mechanically does work. What happens is the end user, us as humans, sooner or later get tired and don't click on the right thing. It's not something that should prohibit your use of it, but it is something that you should be aware of. If you're a team leader on this phone, here's the one thing I will tell you. If an analyst comes to you and they told you they filtered out some stuff and they used this function, it's worth your 5 minutes to write a quick formula. This is the old way of doing a duplicate check before Microsoft built all that stuff in. Because you had to go through and sort your list. Right? And this would pull it up and say, well, gosh, analyst, why is Grover Cleveland on here twice? Well, because I was too busy, playing on Facebook and trying to work at the same time, right? It happens, and that's why I'm not the biggest fan of the filters. It's not that Microsoft built a bad product. That is not the case. It's just we as humans don't seem to interact all that well, or at least not to 100% accuracy with it. That's why I'm not the biggest fan of it.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You bet. Okay. That said, by the way, if you use it every day and you're perfect at it, knock your socks off. Okay, this one here is just a quick audit, right? And so this is an example of sooner or later one of you on this phone is going to get inherited a new client that the old person that had it never wrote anything down. They thought coding in Excel was more of an art than a science, and they just love to put crap everywhere, right? Or if that doesn't happen, you're going to be so awesome at your job this fall. You're going to be ahead of schedule with OE. Everything's going great, right? Carrie Donahue's going to see you leaving the building at 4:59, and she's going to say, wow, how's everything going? And you're going to say, awesome. All my planning paid off. My client loves me. I'm going ice skating, right? And she's going to say, oh, well, hey, Si's client's really far behind. He doesn't really know what's going on. Can you give him a hand? And because you're such an awesome employee, you'll say yes, right? Then you're going to go and you're going to go to Si and you're going to say, hey, what can I help you with? And he's going to say, I don't know what an ERW is. I don't even like Excel. I don't know why people are trying to make me like Excel. And you're going to say, well, that's okay. I'll help you out with it. It'll be fine. Well, this is an extremely rudimentary version, but this is what happens. What we have here is we have some medical options that are elected, right? Here's our test cases. You've got test case number 1, 2, 3, right? Then we have some sort of payroll value table. This is what people are paid off of. Monthly will give you 12, bi-weekly is 26, weekly is 52, right? And then what you're supposed to be doing is going through and coming up with some sort of expected result for annual amounts based on these medical rates, right? That seems pretty simple. What will invariably happen is you're going to run into how this code actually uses medical option and it's labeled and those sort of things. You're going to have just a bunch of junk going everywhere, right? If you come over here and you use the review, where'd they go? Bear with me. There they are. Under formula, trace dependence and precedence. If you click on this, right, it will actually go back and tell you, hey, how did that stuff get there? All right. Well, then maybe you come up here and you say, well, I'm not really sure where that goes. It goes down here. Or perhaps you can come over here and say, where is that all going? Sooner or later, your whole screen is covered with a bunch of arrows and you can't read anything. So you just remove the arrows, right? Then you can come back and say, all right, what do we actually do with this payroll table inside the specific workbook, right? I'm using the example of an ERW. You could also take this over to anyone that has manual spreadsheets to calc things in DB land. It's usually benefit formulas. In H&W land, it may be something that is used for personalized statements such as pews, confirms, or maybe that weird group of union people that have an odd LTD calc that BW was never set up for, right? Sooner or later, you're going to get into a spreadsheet where people did not use kind of a best practice mindset when they wrote it, right? These functions here are perfect for that. And if you ever find yourself with a circular reference that you can't seem to find, this one, there's no circular references in the spreadsheet. We can make one real quick. Equals this, plus this, right? And then equals this, plus this. Right, it will trigger a circular reference. What that's good for is you can come in and say, oops, say, help me out with my circular references, right? And it'll show you where your circular references are. And that's okay. They happen, especially the more tired we get, but it is something, anytime you're just absolutely confused as to what's going on with the spreadsheet, this will help you. The last one that I will give you, and if you're looking at your keyboard, on the left-hand side of your keyboard, you're going to have a control button, and you're going to have a tilde, which is your most upper left-hand button right before the number 1. Anytime you click on control tilde, you'll see this happen, and what it does is it shows all the formulas embedded inside that worksheet you're looking at. That is also a very useful function when you're trying to figure out where people have moved stuff. And then if all else fails, you can always click on a cell and activate it by hitting F2, and you'll see the color. See those little colored boxes there? Those actually tie back to the individual functions being called inside the formula itself. So let me stop there. Any questions on how to unpack someone's spaghetti code? What the tools do, why you would use it, etc. Once, twice. Okay. Moving on. This is a data validation yesterday. This is important enough that we'll talk about it again today. Data validation, if you've never used it, it is a very handy tool, but specifically this is what it's good for. You're going to be testing something. If you're a team leader on this call, you have 3 analysts, right? You're going to give 10 test cases to each analyst. At the end of the day, you want to know what progress you made. Data validation is perfect for allowing people only to enter, 1 or 2, 3, 4, 5 variables that you're going to actually go back and look at, right? If for some reason someone tries to go in and they say, pass-ish, right, because they don't really know what they're doing, you can actually stop them from entering that sort of information. So as a team leader, this gives you the ability to control what the people that are working for you can do. If you're an analyst and you have, Bob, Susie, Joe, whoever's going to give you a hand, this will keep you from having them just put a bunch of junk in your spreadsheet that you're left with correcting at 5:30 before you hand it over to your team leader. This is what's called a critical stop. This is a warning one where if you come in and you type in information that doesn't fall within a specified range, you can actually trigger a box that says, hey, think about that. Is that really what you want to do? And maybe it is. Maybe it's some executive group or an acquisition or a divestiture group that has something special. That's what those are for. And if you've never used it, it's under data and then data validation, and this is literally right here how you set it up. The biggest thing I would tell you about it is anytime you get help, especially during a period of heavy work activity such as open enrollment or actuarial evaluation,